Welcome back to this series of videos where I cover off the key features and functions of your DJing controller. Today we're looking a little bit more closely into looping, which is typically found around the top of the device. This can differ depending on manufacturer, but for most parts it is usually in the top part of the device, and most controllers do have this. But today we're covering off looping. Let's get straight into it. So today's tutorial is all about looping. Now, loop controls are typically found in the top section of your controller. In Pioneer equipment, it's always highlighted by the two orange buttons, and then also you've got your exit and reloop button as well, or 4-beat button in this case. What is a loop? Well, effectively, it is a predetermined piece of a track that you decide which will keep playing over and over again until you tell it to stop. It loops over and over again. That is all a loop is. You can be incredibly creative with loops. First and foremost, they can get you out of a really sticky situation. If you find a track is running out and you haven't got another track to play, you can do a quick loop on an outro of a track, provided it makes musical sense, until you find another track to mix into the outgoing track. So they have got me out of real sticky situations in the past, but also you can be really, really creative with loops. You can layer acapellas over drum beats of other tracks to make really creative little mashups on the fly. So the possibilities really are endless. So to demonstrate looping in a little bit more detail, I'm going to play a track now, and I'm going to show you a basic loop and basically just how it works. So we've got the track loaded here, and off we go. So we're going to hit play. We're just going to do a simple loop in and loop out. So if you look at the waveform, looped in, looped out. So you can now see that that track is just looping over and over again until I tell it to stop, basically. And that is essentially all that looping is. But you can be as flexible as you want on this. You can really like loop as tightly as you want or as widely as you want. In order to exit the loop, you just press this third button and then the track will continue playing. So I'm going to try another example, but with a much tighter loop, so you can just see the flexibility. And again, with every loop, it will keep going until you tell it to stop. And that is basically how looping works. Now, there are some really cool effects that you can do with looping if you adjust them as you continue to loop. So you'll notice on the buttons here, we've got an in adjust and an out adjust. So let me give you an example here. So I've got my loop set. And if I click the out adjust, I can basically make the loop tighter and tighter until it really stutters. And this is where you can get quite creative with your mixing. So if you want to mix like James Hype or someone like that, he uses this type of thing quite a lot. So I press the out button again, and you can see the waveform has changed. Move the jog wheel, and that's how you get those effects that you see the likes of, say, like James Hype doing it. And you can do exactly the same from the in point as well. Now, the other cool thing with looping is that on this button here, it may not be present on all controllers. You can also set a 4-beat loop just with the touch of one button. So let me give you an example of that. So 4 beats, and it just goes over and over again wherever you want it to be. So that's another cool feature with looping. The other thing with looping is that if you know that you've got particular routines or particular transitions as well, especially with Pioneer equipment, you can save your loops, and this is what these two sort of loop and call buttons are used. But that's a bit more advanced, and it's probably not available in the same way on every controller, so we probably won't go into that today, but there are ways that you can save your loops for future use. So that is looping. The other thing to bear in mind when you are looping is having quantize switched on. Now what quantize does is it makes sure that your loops are always in time. It snaps your loops to the beat grid. So if you notice where I've been looping here, everything that I do is pretty much in time. It sounds pretty good, and that is because quantize is switched on. However, if you have quantize switched off, it means that your loops are far more reliant on you being accurate in order for it to sound good. So I'll give you an example now of where looping is happening with the quantize switched off. So you can see there it hasn't snapped to one particular beat, it's more just kind of in between beats. So that's not quite in time there, you see. So that is something that is very, very important to bear in mind. You need to make sure that if you want accuracy, that quantize is activated in order to make your loop sound, I guess, a bit more in time, a bit more musical. However, if you have quantize switched off, you can produce some pretty cool mixes, you can produce pretty cool effects, but just bear in mind that you have to be accurate when punching in and punching out the loops. But that is looping in a nutshell. Have a practice, I think, play with the feature and see if it's something that you would like to use in your DJ sets. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I really hope that you have found it useful. If you did and you are still watching at this moment, please do me a massive favor and hit the thumbs up button. That helps me to get this video out to more people that are going to find this type of content useful. And stick around for the next episode. I'll see you soon.